Hello, this is Minder Chen. I'm Professor of Management Information Systems at Martin Viss School of Business Economics at CSU Channel Island. Uh, in this video, we're going to introduce prompt engineering in the context of generative AI and particular large language model through chatbot type of applications such as ChatGPT and Gemini. So let's look at um, some of the popular large language model in their chatbot, such as ChatGPT from OpenAI, Gemini from Google, uh, Cloud Cloud.ai by Anthropics, and then Perplexity.ai. Perplexity seems to be a more search-based generative AI tool. Um, Notebook LM from Google, it's more a kind of really good study tool. It's not like the first two we just mentioned, but it's something from a learning viewpoint, it's something that you may want to explore. Grok from X is also a popular tool. And there's two more, Mistral from France and DeepSeek from China. On the right hand side, it's the annual what visit count, and you can see that ChatGPT dominate in terms of the user's space in terms of the number of visits annually. Okay, so in this video, sometimes I would just say ChatGPT, but it applied to most of this large language models application. So let's just take a look what's going on when we're using something like ChatGPT. As a user, you're interacting actually with a generative AI application such as ChatGPT through the web, through download a mobile app, and the way you interact with it is through prompting, asking question, giving instruction. Okay, and so in general we just call it prompt. Once again, prompt can be in the form of question, like chatbot question and answer, but prompt can be actually by issuing instruction. Do this for me. Do the following thing for me. Follow the following instruction. And the system will get things done as you get something back to you. The response is how I refer to the output. Sometimes the prompt can be considered so-called input, and the response is considered the output. Okay, the output. However, like ChatGPT, when you prompt the system, they would basically need to send your input and the prompt to a large language model behind the scene. And right now, a lot of those so-called large language model are actually so-called foundation model. They are multimodal, which means they can handle multimedia. Just keep that in mind. We'll stick to in this video most of the prompt are just text-based. Okay, so the way we should interact with generative AI application like ChatGPT is sometimes referred to as prompt engineering. It's the art and the engineering of how you interact with such tool, and it's about think through how you should design your prompt to get the most out of such tool. In this diagram, showing the kind of how you interact with large language model, and you start by issuing you start a new chat. Okay, I'm using the terminology from OpenAI's ChatGPT. A chat can have multiple prompt and multiple response from the large language model, and together it's a chat. When you start another chat, another new chat, then you're done with the current chat. Okay. So your first prompt, sometimes we may call it priming prompt. You kind of set the stage. Okay. And one of the first things you may need to think clearly is that what kind of task you want ChatGPT to do for you. And here I list just in some general category in terms of the type of the task, like generate content, like help me to generate a syllabus, help me to generate a tutorial, help me to create a blog post based on certain information that's been given in my prompt. Summarization, upload an article, let the system summarize it, or copy and paste a really long text and ask the system to summarize it. Sentiment analysis, like some kind of user review of a movie, of a restaurant, and let the system decide whether it's positive, negative, or neutral. Translation from English to French, French to English. The system usually are very good at it. Data extraction. There's an email, mention a few people's name, email address. You can ask the system to do that data extraction for you. Reasoning, like some math problem, that's considered reasoning. And chatbot, certainly they can carry a dialogue with you. And large language model has been very successful in the area of coding, help you to generate code or help you to debug your program and much more. Okay, but let's come back and focus on the kind of interaction between the user and the large language model app. So when you send the prompt to the large language model, the the model will come back with a response. As a user, you need to review the response to see whether it's what you expected. And if it's okay, you just use it. That may be the end of the whole chat. However, you may find the response is not kind of meeting your expectation. Then what you can do is potentially revise the prompt. Come back and revise your original prompt and using different terminology, keywords, adding additional background information, and then issue the prompt again to see whether you can get a better response to meet your expectation. Okay, so that's iterated process in terms of refining the original prompt. However, another approach in prompting is actually take sometime later we'll discuss called multi-turn prompting, which means yet the result come back is not perfect, but it's kind of good enough for me to work with. I can continue the chat and say, oh, please add a stronger conclusion. Please add another paragraph. So we will issue follow-up prompts based on the response that we're getting, and then send that prompt back to the system and then get another response, and then we'll review the response to see how we should carry the chat forward, or we're happy with the response and we're done with the chat. Okay, so that's the kind of workflow with a large language models app. Let's explain a few things. If you do have multi-turn prompting in a chat, then your prompt is considered input. The input, by the way, now in most of the systems, you can upload some document as part of the input. The output is the response. And then once you get the response, which is the output here, you can actually issue a follow-up prompt. This will be your follow-up prompt. However, when you send the follow-up prompt, the previous input or prompt and the response and output from the first turn of conversation will also send in to the system for it to generate output. Therefore, the system actually um, understand the context of the current chat. Okay, which means what has been asked before, what was response, and then what's the most current prompt, and before they will use that information to generate the output. Okay, uh, a little bit more advanced. If somehow we use something we may call it reasoning model in some of the large language model or thinking model, they will come up with the reasoning, which means how they should think through the problem you raise, the prompt that you ask them to do, and that reasoning, that thought, how to think through the problem will be included as part of the extended input, okay, and then send it to the system to get the output. Okay, so this is a multi-turn prompting, and then we need to understand what's the input that was sent to the system when we ask a question. And context window over here is a technical term which referring to the input, and input is accumulated input, which is of your prompt and response, etc. And then the output, certainly. And there's a size limit in terms of the context window, which we would mention a little bit later. Another common term that we need to learn is called few shot learning, or just simply few shot. There's so-called zero shot, one shot, or few shot. And broadly speaking, it's something we call in-context learning. I refer to it as learning on the fly. So let's use translation example. Our task is translate English to French. We give cheese in English and ask the system to translate. We can give an example, one shot, one example. We just say this is in English and that's French. And then we want to translate cheese, and then what will be the French word for it. We can give more than several examples, that's why we call it few shots, and then ask the system how to translate cheese into French. So that's what we refer to as few shot learning. Like to use this diagram to kind of review what we have covered. First of all, we need to understand the term called context. Okay, context, in broadly speaking, when you interact with large language model, you do need to describe the context of your conversation, of your chat. This include some background information, where you're coming from, and what's the role you want the large language model to play. And the background is the specific, okay, a more detailed information. The more detail you describe the situation, the better. Add additional constraint, and in terms of output or conversation style, you can say I want this to be in bullet point, in table format. I want this to be more casual style or more academic style of writing. Okay, and this part is the zero, one, or few shot learning we just mentioned. Okay, and the context also include all the prior prompt and response. Your new or current prompt will be added to this context and send it to the backend large language model. Right now, for instance, ChatGPT are supporting their legacy 4.0 model, GPT-5, 5 Thinking, which is a reasoning model, or 5 Pro, which would do deep research, including web search, for more complicated, advanced prompt. Okay, and at the end, once they get the context, everything in the context, the system will process that and send the response back to you. That's sometimes also called completion. Okay. In when ChatGPT just came out, the context window size usually measured by so-called tokens. Roughly speaking, 3 words, English word equal to 4 tokens. And so the context window size in the first ChatGPT 3.5, I believe, is 4,000 tokens. GPT-4 increased that to about 25,000 words. So the context window size are increasing, but there's still a limit. Okay, let's quickly look at just what is considered a good prompt and what is probably not so good a prompt. And for instance, you want the system to analyze a data set. You can just say, analyze this data set. That's kind of a lazy way of issuing your instruction. And however, you could add a little bit and say, analyze this sales data set, and to help me to analyze the sales trend. Okay. A much better prompt is giving more detailed information, just like how you would tell um, a human expert or a research assistant and say, you are a data scientist. That's kind of role playing. I want you to analyze our quality sales data. That's kind of your input. This data need to be uploaded as a CSV file. Identify key revenue pattern, create visualization. This is kind of the output you're expecting, and highlight anomaly, and then focus on customer segmentation and regional variation. Okay, so it's very detailed. If you don't mention this, what you're looking for, the system will give you something, but may not be exactly what you're looking for. Let's look at another example. And for instance, we're learning Python. You can say, help me to learn Python. But that's very, very broad. So a good prompt is be a little bit more specific. Teach me Python's data structure. Okay. Or even more specific, maybe Python's data structure, such as a list, or provide me with a tutorial on Python's list, which is in the context of data structure. Okay. Uh, a really good prompt will be the following. You are a senior Python instructor, create a step-by-step learning plan or learning guide for data structure, which will include practice exercise for list and dictionary. Those are the two most important building data structure. A real world example using Panda, that's kind of Excel in Python called Panda, and the common pitfalls to avoid. So this is a more thorough prompt, very detailed, and you will get a better, more specific response of your liking. And you can also specify the output. Okay, and you say make a content plan. That's just too vague. What do you mean by content? Okay, you can say create a formatted content plan with specific section. Okay, and this content, what does that mean? It could be an article you want to write. It could be a blog post you want to post on Facebook or LinkedIn. So a very specific prompt as examples present the plan, the content generation plan in table format with column for platforms, content type, and key messages. Okay, so we do want to create some content to be published on different platforms like on X, Facebook, Instagram, etc. What type of content, what's the messages for, and also you can say, okay, I want engagement hooks for each piece and keep individual parts under 200 characters. Role playing is a common trick. Instead of just say, debug the code for me, sometimes I do that. Some system will do a good job, so if you're lazy, this may work, by the way. Okay. However, you want to get better outcome. You can say debug this Python machine learning model. You're giving a code which is a machine learning related program, and you ask the system to help you to debug. Okay. And the excellent prompt, you do the role playing. You just say, as a machine learning engineer specialized in neural network, help me to do the following three things. Okay. Sometimes we will say you are a senior machine learning engineer. When you say you designate the role that you want the large language model to play. You can add specific constraint. Instead of say analyze this data set or analyze customer churn pattern while they're leaving us, you can actually add additional constraint like focus on users who are inactive for more than 30 days. Compare their behavior pattern before they have churn. So you kind of have some kind of early warning signal. Okay, include statistics significance test and do some data visualization using Seaborn, which is a Python library. You're going to see a lot of prompt engineering guide. This is just a simple one from OpenAI. First, include detail in your query, so then you will get more relevant response. Ask the model to adopt a persona, like play the role of a senior manager, experienced senior manager in the marketing area. Okay. Use delimiter to clearly indicate distinct part of output. For instance, I sometimes use pound sign, I sometimes use asterisk and just say the following. And you separate like your prompt and your example using this delimiter. You can actually specify the steps that you want the system to follow, or step-by-step instruction you want the system to follow to complete a task. You'll be surprised the large language model can really understand your detailed step-by-step instruction. Give it a try. We mentioned provide example, that's few-shot learning. And also you can limit the the length of the output, like in 100 words, in no more than 500 words. Sometimes you do want to get a kind of more concise answer back first before you want the system to elaborate for you. I have a similar framework which kind of covered what we have covered with some additional things which we're going to elaborate. So allow me to just quickly go over it without explain in detail. But this is just one slide which kind of explain almost everything possible people mention about prompt engineering. Once again, you prompt a chat app, they will send your prompt along with some other prior conversation in the chat as a context to the backend large language model through API, application program interface, and then the response will send back to your app, and eventually the user are going to see it as a response or completion. Okay. First, thinking about the task, and also specify the topic or subject you want to discuss. Okay, and we did mention variety of the task, which kind of has been explained here. Um, Give a role to the large language model, a persona. We mentioned that. Add a constraint to your prompt. What style, what length, tone. Who may be the target audience? Your You want the system to generate something for you, but what is this for? Document type or style. Is it a syllabus? Is it a business plan? Is it a pitch to the investor? And then variety of format that you want the output to follow. We mentioned example earlier. You can also give the structure of your prompt, which we'll explain later. We call it prompt template, or even more advanced, you can provide a framework. Okay, like a theory. I know about this six-head thinking. Please use six-head thinking style to help me to think through this problem. That's an example of a framework that you can associate with. This can be very, very powerful. Not many people mention this when they mention prompt engineering. Or just give another example. In entrepreneurship, we have something called business model canvas, which has a 9 component. You can prompt the system and say, I have this business idea. Please use business model canvas to describe the 9 component in the business model canvas that I should consider. Okay, that's the way to use the so-called framework. And also learn how to interact with the large language model by giving follow-up prompt in a chat. Okay. This is my framework. It's a little more abstract, but I think it's very useful. Let's look at the center. When you interact with a large language model, you do want to describe what's the situation, the background information. That's kind of a more generic term, and eventually that becomes the context. Okay, you want to provide the context, which is the background, the situation, who you are, and what you want to generate is for, which is target audience. And another term sometimes you will hear from people in this field is called attention. Okay, you also want to kind of direct the attention of the large language model to certain area and using the right keyword. Okay, I want you to focus on, for instance, the data visualization when you analyze this data set. Okay, and that's the attention. Okay, so they're all related in this triangle shape. Okay, once again, this the end user prompts how you can instruct the ChatGPT to work for you, and then they will get back to you through response. So there's a back and forth. Okay, when you try to formulate your prompt, you want to think through it carefully. You want to um, ask the question properly, ask the right question, ask unique question, ask innovative question, and we call it art of questioning. And when you ask question, you basically also rely on your own knowledge in the domain that you when you interact with ChatGPT. Certainly, ChatGPT probably know more about that domain than you are, but you need to apply your knowledge in formulating the prompt so you can get more out of the ChatGPT. Okay. Once you get the response, you need to kind of review it. You will analyze the response to see whether they are on the right track, and then either as follow-up prompt or revise the original prompt, or take the response and then actually using it in the field, see how they work. Okay, and then maybe come back with additional question. Okay, so apply what you get out of ChatGPT is almost like the last step, but it will trigger you to come back and get additional assistance or help from ChatGPT. Sometimes we refer to the large language model, foundation model. There's a difference. Foundation model usually are multimedia or multimodal. So most of the current generative AI system has so-called foundation model, which can handle data through different media, text, image, video, sound, and and then they can perform different tasks, which can actually generate output in multimedia format. Generate text, create image for me, create a slide for me, create a flowchart for me, create a mind mapping for me, or create a short video for me. Okay, so the output could be multimedia as well. Before we get into more example of prompt engineering, let's look at Ethan Malik in his book called Co-Intelligence, which was published, I believe, earlier this year. Um, and his four rule, the first one is called always invite AI to the table, which means sometimes we have limited understanding what generative AI can do for us. So a lot of time we just say, I don't think it can do this for me. So you don't even bother to ask it. What this principle try to say, always try to figure out, can AI or generative AI help me to do this? Give it a try. This is what we mean by always invite AI to the table. The second is be the human in the loop. We just call it human in the loop. Okay, supervising, correcting, providing judgment, accountability. You are in the driving seat. AI is just the co-pilot. Okay, and together you can achieve uh, more. And the third is the persona or role playing that we mentioned. So everybody use that trick. Personally, I don't use it that much because I'm not even sure whether it's really that effective. I think it worked to a certain extent. Okay. Um, And the last one is the interesting one. They assume the tool that you're currently using is the worst AI tool that you will be ever use. What they're really trying to say that um, there's a lot of advancement in this field. New version, new model coming out very quickly. So um, the tool you're using today, in a month, it may be replaced by a new version. So if the tool that you use cannot really respond to your request, to your prompt that well, um, come back and try again when the new model come out. Okay. In another way to look at how we collaborate with large language model, generative AI, is treated as a co-pilot or co-thinker. Okay. Copilot is more at the operational level. Help me to do this. Okay, give me this. Help me revise this email. Help me to generate an assignment. Help me to draft a speech. Okay, and just one prompt. Usually, you get the outcome. Okay, we focus on speed, efficiency, and sometimes automation. Okay, and so help me to draft an email is a very common usage that I use all the time. And your role as a user or manager is provide direction, review the outcome, and to validate what has been generated. The benefit is save you time and reduce your workload. Okay, but using generative AI as a co-thinker is different. Okay, you work with the system and in the conversation to help you to think through a problem, to work as the kind of sounding board, to give you feedback, and you need to push the system to think differently, to help you think about pro and con. Let me just give you an example. For instance, you ask the system to elaborate on your new business idea. They will expand your idea and they will say that's a great idea whatsoever. But you need to learn that generative AI tool tends to support your argument in agreeable personality style. So they kind of always agree with you. That can be dangerous. So in that startup idea situation, idea generation scenario, you may want to, after they say all the good thing about your startup idea, you may want to say, can you point out the risk in this startup idea? Then they will come back with some of the concern. Okay, if you don't ask, they may not tell you that. Okay, so we will come back and talk about co-thinker a little bit more, particularly in the area of management. Dealing with a lot of management issue, this co-thinker can be very powerful, particularly for higher level thinking. Okay, let's say co-pilot. This overlap a little bit what we have covered, but to enforce the concept, some I would skip because we already mentioned, such as few shot prompting. Okay, when we use generative AI as a co-pilot, we need to have one technique. It's called structure prompting. Okay, and which you would define your task. You give detailed instruction of the task. You will provide the context or background, and then specify what kind of output or output format you'd expect it. We can use few shot prompting, which we mentioned. And the third is interactive prompting or prompt iteration, including multi-turn prompting, which is an interesting approach. We kind of, in our workflow, we mentioned that multi-turn prompting. Meta prompting is ask AI for help. I'll give you example for each one of this technique listed here. Structure prompting. Okay, this is almost like what we mentioned earlier. Clearly define the task you want to perform, use the right verb phrase, like summarize this for you, generate this blog post for me, and designate the role, and provide relevant context, background, constraint, etc. And then specify the output format in table form, as a bullet listing, number listing, or very specific format. JSON file, it's a file format. We mentioned few-shot prompting a few times, so we're going to skip this slide. Sometimes this is called demonstration-based prompting. You kind of demonstrate, okay, what you want the system to do. Sometimes I would just upload a document, say this is the document I want you to generate, okay, as an uploaded file. Contextual priming prompt, your first prompt will set the stage, provide the broader context. Okay, certainly this include few-shot prompt. Okay, by giving input-output pair example. Describe the background, including like who is the target audience. Like generate something to me as a sixth grader, as a 10 years old child. Okay, that's the target audience you can specify. Okay, you can set the tone and style, like academic style, create an eye-catching, informal slogan. Prompt iteration or interactive prompting. Okay, and basically you would look at the response from the system and decide how to revise your prompt to get a better outcome. And using the right keywords still work. Okay, when we Google, we use the right keyword when you do prompting. Because if you use certain keyword, the large language model would direct the response based on those keywords. Okay, maybe changing the output format. Sometimes have a more structured output will give you better result. Okay, specify boundary or constraint, like only no more than 200 words. Multi-turn prompting. Multi-turn prompting is like in a chat. You have your priming prompt, your first prompt, and there is response, and then you would ask a follow-up prompt. This is what we call multi-turn prompting. Okay, and this, as example, for instance, you ask like ChatGPT give you an outline maybe of a speech you're going to give, and then once you get the outline, you're happy with it, and you say, okay, help me to expand section 1 in the outline, and then you can look at section 1 to decide what you want to do. Maybe revise the section 1 based on the following comment, or go ahead and expand section 2. Okay, or maybe use a more humorous style and regenerate section 1 for me. Okay, so this is an example of multi-turn prompting. Okay, and multi-turn prompting allow you to keep the human in the loop. Okay, so you can review intermediate outcome and direct the larger language model with additional instruction and guidance to work for you. Okay. Meta prompting. Sometimes for certain tasks, we don't know how to prompt properly, then you can ask ChatGPT to help you. And this is what we call meta prompting. Ask AI for help. Okay. Just describe what you want the system to do for you. Um, and then you just ask ChatGPT and say, what how can I prompt you? And by the way, you, when you're talking to ChatGPT, you means ChatGPT or generative AI. Okay, that's the scenario here. Um, and so in the bracket, you say, how can um, how can I help you to do the following thing? Okay. You may want to say, how can you help me? That may be a better way. How can you help me with the following prompt? Help me to improve the prompt. Okay. Um, that's actually the third one. Okay. Improve the following prompt. Okay. Because I want to get a better output or I want to get a more innovative idea. Okay. You can also ask the system to generate several prompts for you to choose from. This is a version that I created. Allow me to just load it up a little bit. We call it a detailed comprehensive prompt engineering framework. Okay, the detail is abbreviation. Start with D, define the role playing, persona. Okay, and also target audience consider the role. Okay, your role. Who am who is speaking? Who is in tech with ChatGPT and say, I'm instructor teaching prompt engineering in the undergraduate management course. Okay, that's my role. I want you to help me to design a lecture plan, a lesson plan for prompt engineering. Okay, and then you are an expert instruction designer and you also know prompt engineering really well. And that's you give the AI a persona. Okay. Uh, and target audience certainly this is for my undergraduate, say, management course. Okay. So role playing here is much broader in this slide. Okay. You want to establish context, the context certainly including any input you put in, an image you uploaded, a file you uploaded, or few shot example you put it in your prompt. All of those are considered established context and input. Okay. Uh, Objective or goal. Okay, and the outcome. What's your goal? What's desirable result? That's pretty much your outcome already. Let me move over. Okay. And then also, this is more advanced. This is called context relationship statement. You can define relationship among various contextual elements. For instance, you want to say, okay, um, I want to argue for my startup idea, um, and I want to describe my product and service, and also how they may help customer segment to achieve or to alleviate their pain point. So you do have various contextual element like what's your product and services and who is your customer segment and then what kind of problem you try to solve for them, and then you can write a kind of relationship statement to kind of connecting the dot, and then in your prompt you ask the ChatGPT to follow this relationship statement to help you solve a problem. Okay. Task, we usually consider task first and then the action or step to take. Okay. And give example. Future learning, we mentioned. Okay. Specify the output style. And last, in this detail framework, L, limitation, provide some commonly used keyword that you think large language model will understand, and then any guardrail to safeguard the output so you don't generate something which may be considered harmful. Okay, so just add one more. I use this quite a bit. If somehow you need to use certain structure prompt quite a few times, then you probably want to consider create a prompt template. Okay, this is great for reuse. For instance, this is a prompt for creating an itinerary for travelers. Okay, and there are several contextual elements. Okay, when this the traveler will travel, and the place they're going to visit, and what type of activity they want to do in that place they visit. Like this is more cultural experience or more for gourmet French food whatsoever. Okay, so the time, the location, activity type are the three contextual elements, and you can call this a relationship statement, as I mentioned earlier, which is a little bit hard to describe. And now you can actually assign value to various contextual elements. Location is Paris. Time or duration is 3 days. Okay, to spend 3 days in Paris. Okay, and for what? For cultural experience, for culinary delight, and for leisure, for exploration, etc. Okay, so you can fill in the blank, and then the system would follow this final prompt and respond to you. Okay, that's it. We just scratched the surface. We focus on prompt engineering. Um, the best way to learn is start using it. Um, Review some of the prompt engineering guidelines that you can easily find from various websites, or even ask the language model like ChatGPT to provide a prompt engineering guideline for you. So that's it. We'll stop here. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.